Hi everybody, this is Nate. Welcome to my channel. And I today I really wanted to introduce you to Michael, who was a medium, and Michael was a mentor of mine, and I have a lot of respect and admiration for him. And I thought it would be kind of cool to invite him on the channel to share a little bit his perspective on mediumship and connecting with spirits. I know a lot of you have those questions in mind. And so this is basically a little bit of an impromptu conversation with Michael on the topic. But so first, welcome, Michael. And do you want to give us a few words about you and what you do and how you get to where you are today?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Nate. It's such a great, exciting time for you. I'm really excited for your community and everything that you've built over the last few years. So it's an honor to get invited in after a little bit of time. So thank you. Yeah, so I am a medium, which specifically means I connect with those who have crossed to the other side. So our loved ones in spirit. And that also means that I am also a psychic as well. So I utilize my awareness by focusing it on the spirit people, by focusing on those who have gone before and bringing forward evidence that would help you identify that this is your loved one in spirit. So we call that evidential mediumship. So that tends to be a little bit of my sort of specialty. So with evidential mediumship, what we do is we train, we develop, we learn. How do I connect in with information that my sitter or the person receiving the information can recognize their loved one? So memories, names, dates, specifics that help you go, okay, yeah, that's definitely my loved one. Once I am able to identify the person that you're with and you feel good about the fact that it's them, then we bring forward whatever message they have for you. And it's a really important thing, I feel, because we want to be able to prove that your loved one still goes on, that they are still here, that they're still aware of your life. And I think that's a really important thing to do because I think sometimes in the United States, especially, the mediumship quality can be a little bit lower. And they'll just basically like, your grandma's here and she says, give me your social security number, right? Like the quality's a little bit lower. And so they'll just say it's your grandma. With the work that I do and the people that I teach, it's about proving survival. It's about demonstrating that this is your loved one in spirit. So that's what I do. And I spend a lot of time educating people on this topic. I teach people how to do this. I'm a strong believer that everybody can develop some level of mediumistic awareness. Not everybody obviously is going to go put a shingle out and do readings for people, but everybody can connect to their loved ones in spirit. And the reason is right now you're a spiritual being having a human experience. So you are spirit right now. You are connected to the spirit world right now. And so there's no reason why you, that spirit, cannot connect to those who you are still connected to right now. Because, like Rumi says, love is the bridge between you and everything. And I'm a strong believer that that is the case. And so that's what I spend my time doing, helping people connect to their own loved ones as well as connecting them on their behalf.
I really loved what you said. I would comment personally at a personal experience. I was very, very close to my grandmother. And for a long, long time before I got into the world of mediumship, I really wanted to believe that she was really on the other side. But it's really when I got a reading, a really strong mediumship reading, where I received an information that only her and I knew, just to reflect back on what evidential mediumship means. And
Yeah.
it was a very simple fact. I would always call her on Sunday at 11 o'clock in the morning. And
Mm,
this is what came through the reading. And so I was blown away. I knew it was her, and it gave me peace of mind for years and years and years until today. And the other thing that I really appreciated in what you said was I feel like I feel the same way as, traditionally a card reader. That's my, bread and
yeah.
butter, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That intuitive card reader is that we we want to give the information to people, but we also want to empower them to do this work themselves, because I always feel that I always appreciate when people say, I'm very appreciative for your gift, but this gift is the same gift that you have. It's no different. It's so what I really appreciate the comment, I see it as something more universal.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you bring up this idea of gift because I personally believe that it's an ability. I don't even really call it a gift. I mean, it's a gift once I give it to someone else, but I personally believe that it's an ability, just like playing the piano, just like being a basketball player. It's an ability that if we spend the time and energy to learn how to do that, you will learn and you will be able to make a link to your loved ones in spirit. But I think that, back in the day, especially like in the 90s, when you had a lot of those TV personalities on the different shows, a lot of us will remember those days. You will see that there's a lot of this, I was special since birth, that I came into this world with this ability. I saw my grandma's floating head in the closet, and it spoke to me and gave me a message, right? That's the things that we often hear in the stories of mediums. I am not one of those people. I did not have any kind of experience that led me to believe that I was mediumistic. It wasn't until I stumbled into a mediumship demonstration when I didn't know anything about any of this. And the medium that was working there, he was a UK medium, and he came to me during the demonstration and said, "You're a medium. You need to start developing, and one day you'll be doing what I'm doing." I was 18 years old at the time. And that's the only thing that has ever happened to me that led me to believe that I could do this. I went to my first development circle. And when I went there, I got the person's name, dates, relationship, all these sorts of things. And I was blown away. And I was like, okay, I guess that guy was right. I guess I can do mediumship. Well, I went back to that mediumship development circle and I got nothing. And then I went again and I got nothing. And I went again and I got nothing. And that's how it was for a while. And I had to literally learn. I thought to myself, okay, if I could do this one time, then surely there's a way that I can get this to happen again. And so I spent the better part of the last 20 years developing my awareness, developing my connection to the spirit world. And because of that, I can do this work. But it wasn't because I just fell out of the womb and was just, psychic and mediumistic. I just had to develop that ability. And that's what makes me a strong believer that anybody can do this.
I absolutely. I always try to explain to people it's like going to the gym. You build your muscle and you practice your muscle like going to a gym. It's actually not so much of a fairy tale, but it's also a lot of hard work to
Yes.
really get those messages. Um, wanted to kind of shift a little bit the conversation to when you are doing connecting with the other side and connecting with a spirit. Can you, if you can, explain with your own words, how does that feel for you? The process of connecting, feeling, is it sensations, receiving the information at a high level? Like, how can that feel? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people expect that their connection to their loved one is going to be this like apparition that appears to you, and it's going to be this very in your face sort of experience, and super obvious, like when they're just like here, right? The reality is it's subtle. It's a very subtle process, it's a very subtle experience. And what we learn to do is retrain our awareness so that we can pay more attention to the subtle rather than our brain just sifting it out or using logic or reason to kind of dismiss something. So instead, we learn how to pay attention to the subtle, and then that becomes more and more obvious over time. For me, myself, I have my clairsentience, which is feeling through either sensations or emotions within, that acts as sort of the foundation of my awareness. So whenever I am going to co-connect to the spirit world, I spend some time first becoming sensitive to the spirit world. By the way that I do this is I move my attention to this divine spark within. Everybody has their divine spark within. This, the soul, you can think about it as. I take my attention to this energy center in my heart. And then I allow that to begin to open. How do you help it to open? You just soften and relax. You let go of trying. You do less. And by doing so, you start to feel this opening, this sort of expansion from within. And that expansion moves outward beyond the body. And then it starts to move out, maybe like arm's length all around you, in front of you, behind you, your left, your right, above you. And as you do this, you start to feel the atmosphere. The atmosphere starts to shift and change. It starts to feel tingly, buzzy, warmth, heaviness, thickness in the atmosphere. And when we start to become aware of that, it tells me that my awareness is starting to relax. It's starting to let go. And I'm able to start to become more sensitive to energy. Once I'm sitting in that state, that's when I can offer my intention to the spirit and say, okay, guys, I'm ready, I'm open. Or oftentimes they just recognize that I'm ready and open. And then a spirit person starts to step into my energy. I know that they're stepping into my energy because somewhere in the atmosphere around you, I start to feel a density building up. It starts to become thicker in that area, or I start to feel a pressure against my body. And I go, oh, there's a person here. And then that's when I have to relax more so that we can begin what we call blending, so that I can start to receive information. And that's when I might start getting things like pictures, sounds, feelings, sensations, emotions. And that's how I begin my experience. And I think that that's a important thing to recognize, is that I think people oftentimes dismiss their feeling the presence of their loved one, and they think, well, I'm supposed to see it, or I'm supposed to hear a voice or something like that. But in reality, like 80% of what I get all comes through that feeling, that inner knowing, that sort of sense of, ooh, I feel a presence. I feel like something's touching me. Right. And I think it's a common thing that a lot of people experience with their loved ones, and then they'll sometimes write it off and dismiss it. But I want to just tell everybody who's listening, if you've ever had one of those experiences, that's real. That's how they communicate.
And I think you explained very well the process of relaxing into it. Sometimes when I talk to people, I love analogies and simple analogies. So I tell them it's a little bit when you go on a flight, you land somewhere and you go at the baggage claim area. And it's the most frustrating part because you flew 3, 4, 5 hours and then now you have to wait again and you just want your piece of luggage to come. And the only way to get through this is just to pass patiently, relax, and let the luggage go through the carousel and come, literally come to you. And I felt like this is exactly that. The more you just have the anxiety, is it lost? Is it, where is it? You just like worry for no reason. It's not doing anything, but you just try to hold on, try to grab something. And the best way is to just to relax and let the carousel just deliver this luggage actually right in front of you if you let it.
I love that. That is an excellent analogy. And I especially love it because it really highlights this idea of something coming to me,
Yes,
something happening to me, rather than I have to go hunt this down. I
yes.
have to go get it. Let me go reach. Because, like you said, that's the thing that's going to shut it down. It's going to create tension. And tension is one of the biggest inhibitors of connection to the spirit world. If you want to connect with the spirit world, we have to come at it with a relaxed sense of awareness, less of an attachment to an outcome. So you can't sit there being like, I need this to happen. Otherwise, that diminishes it. Most people will recognize that they've had a spiritual experience when they weren't looking for it, when they weren't trying to get it. They're maybe, driving along in a car and they hear a voice, or maybe they are washing the dishes or in the shower or something like that, something that is mindless. That is oftentimes when intuitive information, psychic information, or even mediumistic information happen to us. I know the first time that my grandmother came to me after she had passed, it was the first time that I've had someone really close to me pass away. Um, I had been waiting. I'm like, I'm a professional medium. What do you mean? Like, where are you? Like, get here already, right? But it took a couple of months actually before I was able to perceive that. That's usually due to grief. That's usually due to
Yes.
kind of get a little bit in a cloud of a haze, obviously, as we're dealing with our intense loss. But I remember I was just standing in my bathroom brushing my teeth, and all of a sudden I had this little like this little sort of sense of someone coming in, and I was like, "What the heck? This is so random. I'm just brushing my teeth." And I just gently took my awareness to the side, and I could sense her. I could feel her height, and I could feel her essence. And I was like, finished up brushing my teeth really quick, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think she's here." And I went and I sat in my little lounge, and I just quieted myself. I said, "Okay, don't get too excited because that's going to mess it up too. Just let yourself relax, let yourself surrender, do less." And as I did that, I could feel her so clearly, just as I would if I was reading for someone else. And I felt her so clearly, and she was there, and I was crying, but I was still able to maintain my link. And then it's funny because my cat, who I loved, my first cat, just passed also earlier that year as well. And I just asked her, "Where's Stanzo? Where's Stanzo?" And I kid you not, I felt her like leave for a second and then come back. And then I felt this almost like walking behind me on the back of the couch. And that's something he would have done in his life. And I felt him, there too. It
Oh,
was like, it was a very powerful moment for me because it was the first time. I mean, I had been a professional working medium for years and years and years before that, but it was the first time I had lost someone that was personal, like really, really close to me. And so it was a very different mindset. But anyway, my point with telling that story is just to kind of highlight how it happens, how it comes to you, and that tension or trying or looking for something is really the thing that's going to inhibit your awareness.
and kind of building on that, Michael, once you kind of feel the person, I'm curious how you bridge that feeling. You have recognized the person, but now we're talking about the evidence. And so,
Mhm.
how do you get from that part to the part where you recognize someone's hat or eye colors? That feels like it's still quite of a leap to get from the feeling to the actual evidence.
I love that question. That's a beautiful question. So it kind of comes down to a couple things. So remember in the beginning, I talked about clairsentience, which is feeling the atmosphere, feeling the sensations. That's one piece of clairsentience. That's the external experience of clairsentience. It's the sense of the presence, it's the feeling of them. Now there's a second part of clairsentience, and that's feeling the emotions, the impressions, the
Mm.
sense that we get from people. So think of anyone you know. If you think of your partner, if you think of the person you see walking down the street, the person at Starbucks, whatever it is, you get a sense. They hit you when you meet them, when you come across them. Even if someone just walking across the street, you get a sense of who that person is, and you get hit somewhere in your being. That's that internal sense of clairsentience. And so what happens is as they start to step in, just like if it was a person, if I relax enough, if I'm patient enough, if I'm not trying suddenly,
Yeah.
I actually get hit by these impressions of what their essence brings with them. And so that can be personality, that can be memories, that can be all kinds of things. And when I feel that wave of energy coming from them, because you can think of it this way, this is me being a sensitive little medium, and then this is the spirit drawing close. As they get closer, I'm receiving more and more waves of information from them, impressions, if you will. And those can come in the form of a picture, those can come in the form of a feeling, a sound. But what my job is to stay in that really passive state rather than sort of grab onto anything. So the idea is the closer I let the spirit communicator blend with me, the more likely I'm going to be hit with one of these impressions. And so I may begin by feeling them, but then as I relax into them, there's a blending process where their awareness starts to impart something into my awareness. And that's when you get hit with a piece of information of some kind.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I've always wondered, um, obviously, us connecting with them, it's work, it's a process. It requires experience, even though we can feel it with not necessarily having all the experience. That's the interesting part. But is the other side true as well? For them to actually recognize us, do they also have to learn and figure it out? I almost see it like two telephones. I'm calling you, but you're on the receiving end. Don't you also need to know how the telephone works? You have to pick it up, you have to speak to the right piece. Is that effort a true effort on both sides? Or they just, because they're spirits, they just know how? They already have it figured out by the time they're on the other side.
Yeah, I love that question. And while I can't say for sure, I'll be able to tell you once I get to the other side. But what I can say is, from my understanding and my experience, I would say the issue is rarely the side of the spirit for communication. It's
Mhm.
almost never that side. And the reason that I say that is because I've had people come through in the moment that they pass, right? So like they pass at a different location at a different time. The sitter doesn't even know that. And then the spirit person comes through and then they find out, yes, that person did pass. So in that example, that person immediately just died and they were able to communicate, right? And also, if you think of people who have had visitations from their loved
Mhm.
ones the moment of their passing, that's another example of how the spirit communicator is still able to get a message across, even though they just passed. So there isn't necessarily, I feel, a time of needing to learn necessarily. The only time where I feel like there's maybe a learning curve involved is more so if there's any sort of physical phenomena.
Mm.
So in mediumship, there's other forms of mediumship that have more physical interactions. And it's in those instances, if you're trying to get them to physically, make themselves known, that takes practice, that takes time. But as far as just mind to mind communication, that's how they communicate on the other side. What we need to do is be receptive. That's usually where the issue is, not so much the spirit communicator.
Thank you. I wanted to kind of shift a little bit the conversation to the here and now. And I would say for all of us, most of us, we feel like we're living through very troubled times.
Yeah,
Um, no matter where you are in the world, no matter kind of, I think it's everyone. And I
totally.
was just curious, through your readings or your personal meditations and practice, have you gathered messages from ancestors, guides, beings that are on the other side, and have they commented recently or in the past couple years, because this is not just the last 6 months, this been a phenomenon that we've seen all over the world for a while. What do they say about all this? And do they have any advice?
Yeah. So, very recently, I worked in the trance states, and what that is where you allow your guide or your helper to draw close to you and address who's ever in the space and in the room. And I allowed that to happen recently, and they actually did comment a little bit about the time period right now, and basically the idea of what they said was this is a difficult time period. It is going to be more difficult before it eases up, but that it is our job to try to do good and to support one another in this sort of wherever you can be, wherever you are, to be a light for other people. The reality of difficulty on this plane of existence is it has always been, is always and will be that way because this is a learning place. This is a place for us to discover and learn and grow our souls. And some of the most maybe intense growth is often found in the most difficult times. So if you think about our lives and the instances and things that happen into them, our soul grows a lot during those time periods. And so while I do believe we can still grow in love, there is still opportunity here to grow even in the most difficult of times, and maybe even more so. And as a whole, as a consciousness, because every time that there is darkness, if you look for those lights, if you look for those opportunities where people show up and do good and bring love and try to help, that's shining through some of the best qualities that we also have. And so there is this idea of sort of looking to the helpers, looking to the light, looking to the love. And even though it's difficult and we should fight and we should do everything we can to support those who need our support, I also think that this is a learning time for our humanity and a learning time for um, us deciding what is the world that we want to create going forward. What kind of world is that going to look like, especially with, so many advancements in technology, so much more communication, so much more connection and information available to us. There is this balance between knowing everything that's going on in the world and being able to manage your own health and well-being
Yeah.
and mental well-being, right? There is this dance that we have to do to recognize that our physical body was never meant to understand everything happening everywhere all at once. It was meant to understand biologically our world, our inner world. And so I want to encourage people to find that balance and that dance between staying informed, supporting where you can, and then also recognizing sometimes there is a limitation to that, and only all it's doing is causing you stress and strain and anxiety and worry. So do the good where you can do the good, and then also take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, take a break sometimes, come back to it. So it is this dance, I feel like, responsibility and also caring for yourselves and each other during a time like this. It's an uncertain period for sure.
I think it's a beautiful message. I think most of us were thinking more of, obviously whether domestic politics, but also wars. But there's also the topic of global warming, and I care about animals, like you mentioned your cat, so I'm very glad you
Sure.
did. But was there any messages from spirit specifically on the earth finally? Because that's kind of, I assume that they can see, what's happening with the earth, like the shortages of water. We've had also, you probably done a lot of readings during the pandemic. That's kind of another kind of side aspect of all this. So maybe anything that came through this experience of health and the earth and the animals and our whole community. Yeah.
So one of the things that I would say with regards to this, and this is more so less a direct message from the spirit and more something that I have learned from working with the spirit, is a couple of things. The first is that so much of what does occur, it has more to do with the choices that we make, less to do with some sort of spiritual point where we say, okay, this is the moment that now, if we can get to this moment, everything changes. It's more so us learning how do we ourselves as a collective make these shifts and changes and inspire ourselves to look for the betterment of ourselves. The spirit world is going to exist. We're all going to go there at some point. So none of us are here for forever. The spirit world cares obviously about the suffering and the pain and the loss. And I also recognize that they know that our experience here is a bit of a play, is a bit of a TV show in some ways, because our eternal spirit leaves this physical realm and goes to this other side. With that said, it is our responsibility to care for the during the time that we're here. We don't get to take any of this with us when we go. So we are custodians of this place. We're custodians of this land. And the time that we're here, we're making an impact and we're leaving a mark. And I feel that what truly the spirit world wants us to do is to bring harmony, care, consideration, and love to the earth as well, because there is an energy here, there is a consciousness here. There aren't a ton of, well, I can't say there aren't a ton of places. There's not a ton of places we can access that have life on it the way that we have it here. So it's a special place for the other world. And therefore, it is our job while we're here to care for the animals, to care for the other living and sentient beings that are here, to care for the environment. That is all a part of this concept of compassion and love, which is the root of everything that the spirit world is all about. So, all of the things with the greed, the overfishing, the pollution, all of these sorts of things fall in the line of ways in which we are moving away from love because it's all about my needs over your needs.
Yes.
The spirit world is ultimately about love. The spirit world is ultimately about connection and the oneness of all things. And so, whenever they see us moving in this way, of course, that's going to be difficult. But I think that they also understand the learning and the growth that it's our responsibility.
And
Spirit
for
world,
children and grandchildren.
exactly. It's our responsibility to be conscious of the ways in which we are moving away from love and into fear. Because what is greed other than fear of lack of resources and or fear of not having? And so it's our job then to take the mantle on and the responsibility, especially those of us who are aware, and do what we can to turn the tide of our consciousness and the way that the world works.
Beautiful message, Michael. I think we will end with this because it's really uplifting. I also wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little bit how to reach you, what you do with the community. So if you want to,
Yeah.
and you have a book as well. So tell us a little bit more about all that.
Sure. So I wrote a book called Spirit Speaks. It's a step-by-step guide for developing your own connection to the spirit world. It's a really helpful tool that I wrote as a means to be able to hand this to someone and say, "Hey, read this book. It'll tell you pretty much everything you need to know about mediumship and how it works and why it works and how you can start to develop that yourself." I also, and that book's called Spirit Speaks, and you can get that on Amazon or you can get that on Llewellyn, which is the publisher. I also have an online school where I teach people mediumship and psychic development, healing. I teach people how to become mediums themselves. And we start from I know nothing all the way through after I think it's like 2.5, almost 3 years, to working fully fledged working medium. So I've seen time and time again that we can teach people who think they have no ability and help them learn how to do this themselves. So that school is called oakbridgeinstitute.org.
And I put
Uh,
all those links in the description so
Perfect.
you don't have
And
to.
then if you're interested in either mentoring with me, where I'm teaching you one-on-one or small group, you can do that at mediummichaelmayo.com. That's also where you can book any sort of readings with me. And then all my social media is Medium Michael Mayo. So whatever it is, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was really a pleasure to have you here on the channel. I know we do on the channel a lot of predictions and news cycle, and so it's been such a refresher, a breath of fresh air from the day to day, which I'm sure everyone will love. So thank you so much for being here. I am sure that people will enjoy this video a lot, and I would love to have you again, maybe live this time to answer some of everyone's questions on connecting with the other side and how everything works, how to reach and connect with your guides, so many other questions, but it was such a beautiful introduction, so I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And I absolutely look forward to coming back on and connecting with you and your community. So thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, everyone.